There is a considerable contingent of updates coming to Raceroom over the coming months. You've all heard about the complete overhaul of the force feedback system, the replay system, and a host of other smaller updates and tweaks, which I will be getting to over the next few weeks. But for today, we're starting things off with two new circuits, Vålerbanen and Brno. Hello fellow sim racers. As I alluded in the intro, there is a lot going on in the background at Sector 3 Studios, and Raceroom is getting some pretty important updates. You will see some of them in this video, for example the replay system, or at least some of the stuff it can do, though I have started work on a dedicated video about that that'll be coming out in the next few days. However, I won't be talking about the new force feedback system this time, since I think that deserves a dedicated video, but I will say it is a big step forward. Let's start things off with Vålerbanen, since it is the lesser known of the two new circuits. And in typical Raceroom form, they've introduced a circuit that's been largely overlooked by most sim racing titles in the past, which makes this a bit of a hidden gem, at least in my book. At under 3 kilometers for the main layout and with a scant 10 corners, it looks like the sort of place that would generate some pretty intense racing in the right cars. And well, it does. If you enjoy a bit of door banging and tin tops, then this has a lot going for it. So then it's perhaps apt that, as far as I can tell, it has only featured in one racing title since its construction in 1993, and that's Swedish Touring Car Championship the game. I don't really remember much about that title other than it was developed by the very same Sector 3 Studios back in the late 2000s. And with that little piece of joined up history out of the way, what's the circuit like to drive in Raceroom? In a word, it's attacky. Okay, that's not really a word, so bear with me. If you're sensible enough to stick to the sort of cars that this place favours, then this is the sort of circuit that really requires for you to take liberties to get the most out of it. And I mean that in the very best way possible. I'm trying to avoid using the word commitment here, because throwing a car through Blanchimont, for example, requires commitment, and well, there's nothing quite like that here, but there are plenty of corners where you really do have to treat the curbs like their very existence is an affront to your personal well-being, which is to say, ignore them as best you can. And that is a lot of fun. I rarely do circuit tours, but this place is small enough that it would be rude not to. The chicane at turns 1 and 2 is pleasingly fast, with a braking point that's concerningly deep into the corner. Magic when you get it right, grassy if you don't. Turn 4 isn't quite flat out in most touring cars, and in this case I'm fighting understeer all the way through. Turns 5 and 6 are close enough to treat as one corner, or at least they are when you get it right. A small mistake here though will have you looking in the mirrors on the rundown to the main overtaking point on this circuit at turn 7. You have to sacrifice your exit here as turn 8 is right upon you, as is the fast turn 9. The curb here is pretty flat and it's ripe for abuse, but as soon as you have the car straightened up, you're on the brakes again for the final turn, which is, well, tighter than it looks. So then, Vålerbanen is a good bit of fun in tin tops, and there are no shortage of them in Raceroom. But it has to be said, if you like your cars with more wings than the Boeing assembly line, then this just isn't the place. But then again, that's not really the point of venues like this. Vålerbanen was created to cater both club and national racing scenes in Norway, as well as functioning as a driver training and testing facility. And, well, that's actually the sort of place that's really well suited to most of us in sim racing, lest we forget that we're not all the second coming of Senna. Comparatively speaking, Brno is a household name, especially if you enjoy your motorsport with a bit more leaning. The old road course hosted the Czech Motorcycle Grand Prix from 1965 up until the introduction of the permanent circuit in the late 80s, and it's been a fixture on the calendar ever since. Except this year, but don't let that get in the way of the point I'm trying to make. At a healthy 4.5 kilometers in length and with lap times in the mid 1-minute 30s for a modern-ish Formula 1 car, then this is much more like the kind of circuit we're used to. So right off the bat, the contrast is clear, and that means all sorts of cars are well suited, from the aforementioned touring and cup cars up to the more exciting and or deadly stuff. Now I have to admit, of all the cars I tried around here, the LMP2s really did feel like a great sweet spot. Beyond the more spacious layout, Brno also has some pretty significant elevation change to offer, though it does sort of creep up on you. After the first sector, you spend a lot of time travelling gently downhill, only to be met by a hefty climb back up to the start line in the final part of the lap. And thanks to that, coupled with its forest location, it does all feel pretty epic as you're driving around. On that note, the place is pretty densely populated and has a very lively feeling, which probably doesn't matter all that much to some of you, but it's the sort of thing I like. It's all too easy for a circuit in racing sims to feel a bit lifeless and, dare I say it, lonely, but that's very much not the case here. Back to driving, and as you would expect from an FIA Grade 2 circuit, the tarmac's reasonably smooth, the curbs are modern and sensible, and there's plenty of runoff, though it is all gravel, so mistakes are punished. It's what I'd describe as a technical circuit for the most part, particularly in the middle, but there are corners like Turn 1, which is fast-flowing and seemingly endless, which requires a lot of commitment, a word I seem to be unable to avoid. It's definitely a place that's suited to faster tourers, GTs and single-seaters, if perhaps not modern Formula 1, with its requirements for multi-kilometre long straights and the like. But then again, Imola seemed to work, so what do I know? In other words, it'll be perfect for GT3 cars, which I do hear are pretty popular these days. What that all means though is that this is a circuit that's really well equipped to provide good, close racing. In touring cars, more corners offer overtaking opportunities than don't, and even in the Le Mans prototype there were 3 or 4 decent places to make a pass, or at least that's true against the AI, which I should really say provided the usual mix of ungodly speed and robust racing that we've come to expect from Raceroom. So then, that's about it for this quick look at these 2 new circuits that will be coming to Raceroom over the next couple of weeks. Keep an eye out later this week for my video covering the new replay system, which is much more interesting than it sounds, I promise. And then it'll be a couple of weeks before I publish the force feedback video, since I want to test it out with a new CSL direct drive wheel as well, which I have sitting here in the studio ready to unbox as soon as I hit upload on this video. Thank you to Sector 3 for letting me take a look at some of the new Raceroom content and features, and thanks to you guys for watching. So I guess all that's left to say is goodbye and enjoy the rest of your day.